were mentored by some of the best men of God. David Wilkerson, Leonard Ravenhill.
David Wilkerson, Leonard Ravenhill are two of the men, to me, they're my spiritual fathers. And people ask me, you know, they say, why are you the way you are? Well, we're all products of who we've been hanging around. And that's why I say, pick your friends carefully, okay? And David Wilkerson put me through Bible school, met Leonard Ravenhill, Nicky Cruz, taught us on evangelism. So I was raised around, and of course Ravenhill was friends with Smith Wigglesworth and A.W.
So
Tozer.
it goes on and on. It's all connected. But another thing I noticed about you, you were hungry for God. Wherever he heard there was a move of God, he was there. I mean, a lot of people say, well, if God wants to do something to me, he'll come to me. Well, he can and will. But I'm so hungry for God, if I hear he's somewhere, I'm out there. And that's the way Steve was.
See, it's so non-biblical for people to say, if God's going to move, he's got to come to me. Who do we think we are to say to God that he's already come? He's already come down. Okay, and he set it up we celebrate Christmas Day. He set up the whole pattern. The baby Jesus was there. The shepherds had to come to him. Later on, the wise men had to come to him. And I always tell people, God gave the first altar call. He sets it up to where we got to go to him. And so I have pursued the Lord all my life.
Let's take you to Argentina, the revival. You went there. They've been in revival more years than I can even remember. But tell me, when you saw Carlos Anacondia.
Well, we lived there for 7 years during the peak of the Argentine revival, and it's still moving on. God's still moving. We saw churches go from 500 to 20,000. Just amazing. My wife and I planted 13 churches, built an orphanage. But Carlos Anacondia, when I got around him, and los que hablan español también hablo español, and those that speak Spanish, I speak Spanish fluent. My wife and I lived there 7 years. But Carlos was this insane. And if you're watching Carlos, that's a respectful word for you, okay? Just, he was insane for the things of God. And he's a man that owns a nuts and bolts factory. And so anyone that feels like you're common, okay, look at this man. And I went to one of his crusades in a nutshell, brother, because we could talk all day about this man. Went to his crusade, 20, 30,000 people out in an open field, bunch of light bulbs hanging, just naked light bulbs hanging everywhere. No big fanfare, just this man that had authority.
Come out!
He had authority over darkness. And I would watch him in front of tens of thousands of people. And he would go, en el nombre de Jesucristo de Nazaret, in the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Teato Satanas, I bind you, Satan. And as far as the eye could see, people were hit by the power, thrown to the ground. People that were walking down the sidewalks, not even paying attention to him, would be thrown to the ground, start shaking under the power. And I saw this and I went, Jesus, whatever this man has. Jesus, Peter's shadow healed the sick. And this is the closest thing I've ever seen to that. I want what he has. And you better get hungry, my friend. If you want to be used of God, you got to have a hunger. You got to have a craving for that. And I got that.
Steve went to these various moves of God. I was hungry. I was overwhelmed with what I saw. Obviously, a lot of other people worldwide were overwhelmed. 4 million people went to that little church in Pensacola, Florida, because the power of God was there. Tell me about that girl that had cancer.
We had a young, and there's so many stories, and you know, I want to talk about this vision that God has just given me, because many, you know, you're looking for these peaks in your life. The peak in your life is in front of you, not behind you. Okay, there's more to God than what you have. But the Brownsville Revival, we saw millions of people come through. I preached there for 5 years. Saw 4 million people come through, but they would come in jets. They would come in private jets. They'd come on trains. They'd hitchhike. They came from all over because we had the news. The CNN and all these guys covered it. And so they brought the lost in. But this one little girl, 15 years old, came in. She couldn't have weighed 80 pounds, had a little baseball cap on, dying of cancer. Long story in a nutshell. we did something we never did. We brought her on the platform, okay? Thousands of people there that night, and I just felt of the Lord that we needed to lay hands on her. She was going to die. She was sent there as a last request. She wanted to go to Brownsville, not Disney. She didn't want to go anywhere else but the Brownsville revival. Laid hands on her 2 weeks later. This was before internet and all this kind of stuff. I mean, internet was out, but it wasn't just Facebook and all. Her father sends us a letter. Just did the PET scans, just did all the scans. All the cancer's gone. And now, years later, we just contacted her, and she's graduated from university. She's doing fantastic. All the cancer's gone. Now, remember, she was given up for dead. And so we've just seen so many miracles. I believe, that's why I love your program. It's supernatural. If you don't believe in the supernatural, you don't believe in Jesus. I want to say that again.
Do you like
if you
that?
don't believe in the supernatural, you don't believe in Jesus.
Now, you see why the devil tried to take him out. And let me tell you, something happened. I observed him before he developed cancer. And it was terminal. There was no chance of him surviving. He was preparing for his funeral, making arrangements with his wife. He is literally on his deathbed. And he cries out to Jesus, and he says, Jesus, if you want to take me, take me. But if you leave me here and give me my strength back, I will win 1 million souls for you. And guess what? God answered his prayer. God gave him a vision for the last days. You better listen to this.
I recently had a supernatural visitation from the Lord. I am under mandate to share with everyone. It's tearing me up even as we talk right now because God, I was in having devotions and I was sitting on my couch. I could take you to the exact place. I was sitting on my couch and the Lord, it was early in the morning. No one else was awake in the house. And I closed my eyes and I began to see this color vision come down. It just, a vision is just a supernatural experience from God. And he began to download this in my spirit. And I saw this resort, an incredible ski resort. And I opened my eyes because it was so real, Sid. And I opened my eyes and it disappeared. So I closed them again and I began to shake because it was like watching a movie. And I looked up and I saw above the ski resort, I saw this mountain of snow. Now, I'm a skier. And I saw this mountain of snow, but it was piled up. It was more than what we needed to ski. And the Lord began to speak to me about the end times, that this mountain of snow is all the false teaching that is falling on the church right now. And if we don't do something about it, if we don't destroy these layers and layers and layers of snow, then it's going to come crashing down on innocent Christians. And in this vision, the resort was the church. These were people that just came, they came, they paid to be at the resort. We give tithes to be at church. Innocent people are going to die if we don't do something about this. I can't believe it's happening in my lifetime. My daughter, who was in Bible school, one of the teachers stood up and said to the students, said that once you're a Christian, you are free to do anything you want. You can do anything you want. You're free to sin. You're free to... And so my daughter's sitting out there, and he's saying you're free to jump in bed with your boyfriend. You're free to drink. You're free to do anything you want because the blood covers it all. And then the deification of man. That is the worship of man. Look at this world today. We're putting on pedestals all these ministers and all these politicians. It's a setup for the Antichrist because in the last days, we are going to worship man and we're going to look to him for all the answers. I'm going to tell you right now, Sid, you see it. I see it. It's clear as day. I can't believe other people cannot see what's going on in the world. But we got to get back to something.
And what is that?
And that is what we've got to do with this avalanche, the spiritual avalanche that could kill millions. We are responsible as leaders, as generals, to destroy. And what I saw in the vision, I saw helicopters, I saw snowmobiles, and I saw anti-tank weapons. blowing up these mountains. And it was as clear as watching a television program. Snow was crumbling down. It was under control because these generals were blowing it up themselves before it blew up and came down and killed people. I got on the phone, soaked already with tears. My phone was sticky. And I talked to the Colorado Ski Patrol, and I shared with them my vision. And they said, everything you saw, Mr. Hill, is exactly what we do. You saw the Ski Patrol in action. We're trying to save their lives. And he said, I personally man an anti-tank weapon, and my shells shoot 5 miles, 7, 8 kilometers into the mountains to blow them up. And I'm listening, and this just happened, okay? This is not 5, 10, 20 years ago. Then he said this, and I close. He lifted his voice like an evangelist, and he said, could I say something to you, Mr. Hill? And I said, yes, sir. And his voice began to crack like mine is cracking. He said, do you want to know why they die? And I said, yes. Why do they die? He said, because they don't listen to me. They refuse to listen. He said, they refuse to listen to me. I tell them, don't go up to that mountain. But they go anyway. They go on their their snowmobiles. They go on their helicopters. And he said, they're dropped off onto the mountain. And then he said, an hour later, I'm digging their corpse out of the snow. And I told him, I said, thank you very much. And I said, I do the same thing. I spend my life trying to save lives.